Hello, I'm Chris Beachum, managing editor of Gold Derby, here with senior editors Marcus Dixon, Daniel Montgomery, and Denton Davidson. We're going to talk about some of our underdogs for the Emmys this year. Just people and shows that we hope get in across the comedy and drama and limited series categories. We know a lot of great stuff like Succession and Squid Game and Ted Lasso. They're going to get in. We don't have to worry about them. We're not going to focus on them today. So let's start with comedy. Marcus, let's start with you. What's a comedy that might be on the bubble to get in that you're a little worried about, or maybe you're completely worried about that you hope makes it in?
I'm looking at Gold Derby's odds right now, and I would say the top 5 or 6 that we have, Ted Lasso, Hackberry, Only Murders, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I think those are all safe. The ones that I'm kind of rooting for that are on the bubble, I guess you could say, are Abbott Elementary. Such a great show, and it's a network show. We love these, broadcast network shows that always get snubbed. And Reservation Dogs. I know it got some traction at some precursors during the winter season, but I hope Emmy voters are watching it, and I hope it makes it into the lineup.
Okay, Daniel?
Speaking of networks, I'm really hoping that Blackish gets a little bit more traction, because it's been the underdog for, the entire 8-year run it's been on the air. And now this is its final season. I thought it went out as strong as it's been. It kept up its consistency surprisingly well, given that a lot of shows by year 6, 7, 8 are kind of running on fumes. So it feels like it's the show for the wrong time, in the sense that, like, if it had started 10 years earlier, we'd have gotten sick of it winning Emmys. But it just never got the traction as much as I think it should have. So Blackish, definitely. I do think there's one show that we all might be underestimating that would be a really lovely addition, which would be Our Flag Means Death. It's a show that I hear so much chatter about online. It could be an online thing, but there's just such goodwill around it. I wonder if it could be like the Flight of the Conchords of this year, this kind of offbeat show, with Rhys Darby, he's also in it. I'd really love to see that get in, and it's Taika Waititi, so he's got name recognition. So those are a couple that I would love to see.
And Denton, what about you?
Well, Pen 15 has been one of my favorite shows since it's been on. I think it's so funny, and they sort of just let out the last season without much fanfare. So I don't have the highest hopes for it, but I just think the writing is so funny, the acting is hilarious. That's always been one of my favorite comedies. And the other one that's gone under the radar, which surprises me a little, is the Sex Lives of College Girls. It was created by Mindy Kaling. It's on HBO Max. Another one that's just hilarious. Maybe I like a little bit more of a raunchy comedy than Emmy voters do. But for me, those 2 shows, I would be thrilled if either of them got in for any of the acting categories, but mainly comedy series or any of the acting categories would be fantastic.
I'm going to go against exactly what I said at the top, only because I'm going to say Only Murders in the Building. It's the best comedy I've seen in the past 5 years. I'm almost certain, I think all 4 of us are almost certain it's getting in, but anytime we're talking about a first year show, you just don't know until you see it. I think Steve Martin and Martin Short get in. They're beloved in the industry, long careers and known for comedy. I'm a little worried about Selena Gomez. I'm going to tell you something. She impressed me. I didn't even know much about her. She obviously wasn't in my demographic group with her other shows that she's had and other things and music and stuff that she's had over. To hold her on with Steve and Martin, think about if they had cast that part wrong. Every time that character would have rolled on screen, you have been going, oh, let's get back to the guys. But she really made that work, and I was very impressed with her. So many guest stars, Nathan Lane, Divine Joy Randolph. I can't remember the guy that played Nathan's son was amazing, especially in that episode everybody was talking about that had no dialogue. Anyway, I would love to see it get in for a lot of categories. Let me also say one that Marcus said. Well, I'll bring it up in context of broadcast network. I am also hoping for Abbott Elementary and Ghosts. We've complained for years about the broadcast networks. I mean, they complain that they're not getting into the Emmys, yet they put on 90% of their programming is procedurals, which is not Emmy friendly. But when they take a shot, and the critics actually like a show like Ghost and Abbott Elementary, and the public likes the show, let's reward that. I would love to see both of those get in. They're more traditional types of past Emmy type favorites, but they also have an edge to them, both of them. So I would just love to see both of those get in. Marcus, back to you. Is there an actor or actress you would love to see make it in the comedy area?
Yes, and there were two more comedies I was going to mention, and this kind of goes into actor and actress. Curb Your Enthusiasm. How many shows in season, I think 11, are still entertaining audiences and still making people laugh? So I'll add that to comedy series, and Larry David for actor. And then Insecure, 5 seasons on TV. This show went out with a bang. It was so good, and it's only in 14th place in our Gold Derby odds. So I'm praying for something for Insecure and for Issa Rae for actress to get in.
Well, that's partially because last year, a lot of shows were absent from the Emmy ballot. They didn't air in that year, and things came back, even like Blackish. But this year, you've got all the new stuff. You've got the stuff we know they love, like Ted and Hacks. And then you've got shows returning from 1 and 2 and 3 year absences, like Curb and Russian Doll, and I can't even remember all of them. There's Atlanta and Barry and others. I don't know how they're going to fit everything in, but there are going to be some people on Emmy morning that are stunned that they're not nominated because they're used to being nominated.
And I'll add one more for actress, Cecily Strong, Schmigadoon. We all love her on SNL, but this was a chance for her to be a lead actress, and she killed it. I love that show. I love her.
There's a lot of people in that show that deserve to be across the supporting and guest stars. Daniel, an actor or actress?
Well, from Blackish, Anthony Anderson and Tracee Ellis Ross are strong possibilities. They might be sort of on the bubble, but they've both been nominated multiple times before. I would really love that show to get 1 or 2 or more supporting nominations, especially like Lawrence Fishburne, Jennifer Lewis. The fact that they've never been nominated for these roles, even though, like I said, if this show had aired in the 2000s, as opposed to the mid to late 2010s, like those two would have been perennial nominees. Jennifer Lewis could have been a Doris Roberts, where we would have gotten sick of her winning. So I really love to see them get in, or even 1 or 2 of the kids. Marseille Martin is just extraordinary on it, and having grown up on that show. So I'd love to see some more love beyond Tracee and Anthony.
Denton?
I agree with Daniel about Blackish, and Anthony Anderson has some great episodes in this last season. So it would be nice to see them get some farewell nods. On the actress side, I would love for more people to see Courtney Cox in Shining Vale. It's hilarious. Again, it's a little bizarre. She's possessed in this series by Mira Sorvino, and it's really crude and crass. So again, it's not for everyone, but to me, I was shocked at how funny it was. It's a comedy that you actually laugh out loud watching, which is sometimes rare these days. So I would love to see more comedy that makes you laugh get in some of these comedy races.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think I covered mine. Let me just say, and we're not going to be very negative at all, but I will say I watch SNL every week. I've watched it every week of my life. This was not the greatest of seasons. Let's back off the domination by SNL on supporting and guest stars when there's so much good comedy on TV. Just back it down to 1 or 2, here or there, the ones that really, really deserve it and not name checks. Daniel, we'll let you start on drama. What's a drama or 2 that's on the borderline?
Well, there's one that I would love to see that's, I think it's, not quite at the borderline. It's which is Star Trek Picard in its second season. So I just want to throw that out there, even though I think it's a long shot, not so much on the borderline. On the borderline, though, I think Yellow Jackets. It would be a really exciting nominee, and I think it's on the, like, if this show were a Netflix show or a Hulu show or an FX show, I feel like it would be pretty safe for a nomination. But given the fact that Showtime has been so, like, it hasn't been on Emmy voters' radar in the last several years, that, and the fact that it's a first-year show, Chris, like you said, with Only Murders in the Building, means that we don't know what the voters are going to think of it, even though it seems like it's got a lot of buzz and it's got a lot of momentum. So I'm really hoping that comes through, and I'll talk about that with acting a little bit later. But yeah, those are a couple.
Okay, Denton.
This Is Us. I mean, it's not in our top 8. I think it's maybe 10th or 11th or 12th right now. And again, it's the farewell season. I think it went out on a strong note. There weren't a lot of complaints for the season, for the series finale, and those can be tricky. So I would love to see This Is Us get farewell nods for series and in the acting categories that we're going to talk about later. Also, I really am hoping the best, as you said, for new series. You never know. I really want Severance in there. It's such a cool show, so original. I haven't seen people really sort of dissecting it online, a show like this, really maybe since Lost 15 years ago. So Apple TV Plus Severance is another one that I have my fingers crossed for.
And watch for Denton. Denton's got a panel coming up that he recorded yesterday with Ben Stiller and Adam Scott and several people. So that's a fun panel. Ben is always a good guest on things like that. He has he's funny, but he also is really smart. So anyway, Marcus.
My favorite 3 shows of the year of 2022 so far, we're about 6 months in now, or 5 months in, are Stranger Things, Severance, and This Is Us. I would love if all 3 of them got in. Right now, it looks like Severance has the best chance at Gold Derby. That's in 6th place. Stranger Things is in 9th, and This Is Us is in 10th. Stranger Things, though, keeps rising. It wasn't in 9th, a couple weeks ago. I think as more people are seeing it. I mean, it just came out a week ago. More people are seeing it, and it's reminding people, oh yeah, this is a good show. What did you say, Chris?
It's perfect timing for voters.
Oh yeah.
Voters start their thing in mid-June.
And not just reminding people, it's Stranger Things has gotten such huge viewership that this time last month I would have thought Stranger Things probably isn't getting back in, and now I think it has a real shot.
Let me mention the 2 yellow shows. You mentioned Yellow Jackets. I would love to see Showtime back in big races like they were, in the days of Homeland. Yellowstone, 4th season. It's the most popular show on cable, maybe if you add in streaming and everything. Continues to rise in the past year on all the Guild Awards, got in at the SAG Awards. I don't understand why this show doesn't take off with Emmy voters. It's got Oscar caliber people behind it with Taylor Sheridan and Kevin Costner. Incredible production values. If it doesn't get in this year on major categories, it's never getting in. Mm-hmm. It's peaked on its interest level in the public. It's peaked on its ability to campaign this year. They're putting a lot more weight behind it, and I just don't know what to do if this show doesn't get in on some major categories this time around.
I think it will this time, because this year it also got the precursors that it never had before. It got SAG, it got Producers Guild. So I think.
Oh, I agree. And the only negative with Emmy voting is that precursors are 5 and 6 and 7 months before. Unlike Oscar voters just know to follow along with whatever's happening in the 3 or 4 weeks before they vote. So I don't know that the Emmy voters are going to realize that, other than all the campaign material has that. Well, Daniel, who's an actor or two?
I mean, I will keep beating the drum for Patrick Stewart until the day I die. He dealt with, his character dealt, like Captain Picard, dealt with childhood trauma, resolving like trauma over the death of his mother. It's classic kind of Emmy drama. It's just happened to be packaged in a sci-fi show that voters aren't always paying that kind of attention to. But they did nominate Star Trek: The Next Generation for Best Drama Series in its last season, so I have to believe that some Emmy voters have it on their radar. But in terms of much more plausible, I'm really, really hoping that the Melanie Linsky, buzz and momentum really pays off, because she's been an underrated actress for literally decades. She should have gotten 1 or 2 nominations for the HBO comedy Togetherness that she didn't get. She was an absolute masterclass on that show. So I really love the fact that she's having this moment right now, and I hope it really pays off with a nomination.
Denton, how about you?
Patricia Arquette for Severance. I think she's the best actress on television. The last couple of years with The Act, Escape at Danny Mora, she won an Emmy way back for Medium. So I'm not just hoping, I think there's a strong possibility. I think her odds are much higher than our show currently. I think Emmy voters really love her, and I expect her to get in for Severance. Mandy Moore, a lot of people want to see get in for her farewell on This Is Us. As well. That would be sort of another nice goodbye story to see. And another on the actor side I have right now is Gary Oldman in Slow Horses. I got to interview him. He's very fun to speak with, charming, and an Oscar winner that's doing television for the first time. So that would be an interesting turn of events.
Everybody watched that interview. It is so much fun. And he pauses to think through his answers before, most people just, you get a question and give an answer. He really thinks through his answers before he gives them, and laughs a lot. You don't picture Gary Oldman laughing a lot, but he does. Marcus?
Let me take a moment like Gary would and think about this question. Denton kind of stole mine, Mandy Moore. I think, every year I kind of pick somebody and say, this is the person I most want to win an Emmy. This year it's Mandy Moore. It's her last chance. This was her best season ever. She did the young, she did the old. I don't want to spoil if you haven't seen it, but there was a whole episode devoted to her called The Train at the end. Justin Hartley for This Is Us. He's never been nominated. This is his last time. A lot of people are rooting for him. Adam Scott for Severance. He's been in so many great shows. Party Down and Parks and Rec. He's never been nominated for an Emmy. He's so well deserved for this specific show, Severance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about limited series. I'll go first on this one. And I think the people here know what I'm going to say, but the people that watching don't necessarily know. I love The Offer on Paramount Plus. I love anything, not anything, but I generally favor things that are historical Hollywood kind of programs, whether they be TV or films. And I was just blown away by this. When it ended, I just did not want it to end. But it has a natural ending point, obviously, since it's about the making of a movie, The Godfather. So I would love to see that again. I don't know that it is. HBO and Netflix so often dominate this category and there's less slots, for limited series and the limited actors. So it's going to be difficult. And also Paramount Plus doesn't have the history of getting into the Emmys, but I would love to see it get in there for several of the actors. I'll mention 2 in a moment, but let's go to Denton first on a limited series.
It's hard. It's so hard to keep up with all of them. I mean, it's
the most packed set of races this year. I mean, there's going to be people that we won't know where people fell, but that actually fall somewhere in like the 15 to 25 range on those Emmy calculations.
Yeah.
That would have gotten in any other year.
I mean, just a couple that I loved that maybe I didn't expect to love as much as I did was Pam and Tommy. I thought was hilarious and great, and meaningful to watch about two people that were so considered so non-award worthy throughout their careers to be presented in this sort of new way. I thought was really fascinating to watch. And Gaslit, I thought, oh, like how boring is this going to be about Watergate? And it's so good. I mean, it's so entertaining. I love that show. And so I think they really put a new twist on that story and how they're telling it through a woman's point of view. And so those are two that, you know, I wasn't expecting to like as much as I did, that I would love to see get some Emmy love.
Marcus?
The Staircase. I made the stupid mistake of watching this a few weeks ago before it was over, and now I have to wait each week to see what happens next. I'm so irritated. That's how TV used to be, remember, people? And you know what? Impeachment was really, really good, and I feel like the critics were a little too hard on it. And for my money, it's Ryan Murphy's best project since People versus OJ. Sarah Paulson was fantastic. Beanie was great. If you haven't seen it because maybe the critics were a little too hard on it, go watch it. It's on FX and I think on Hulu as well.
Daniel?
For me, in terms of a surprise, I watched Midnight Mass because I thought it would be like a fun diversion, and it is a fun diversion, but it's also like an incredibly good drama, and it's incredibly well written. The way, you know, you have a show about, you know, the supernatural horror, and it's so driven by dialogue and character development and themes about faith, about this town that's kind of you know, lost a lot of its industry and lost a lot of its wealth and promise. It's such a good drama about a place that has the supernatural element on top of it. But yeah, that really took me by surprise, and I really love to see it be recognized.
And that's a worry in the Emmy world. Things that debuted 6 months ago, 8 months ago, 10 months ago, like that did in the fall, are people going to remember it? You know, it did okay at some of the guilds and like Critics' Choice. I think it got some nominations, but that was coming right off of its streaming. So are people going to remember something like that? That was why I mentioned Only Murders earlier. That aired last September. You know, it will be airing in June with new episodes, and that's been a really good formula for some things. But you know, what if the new episodes aren't as good? Do people punish a show when that happens? Even though on the first season episodes, which were great. I'll mention a couple of actors from The Offer. I thought the performance of the year in anything I saw for 12 months was Matthew Good as Robert Evans in The Offer. I've moved him into first place, sort of wish, what do they call it? Wish hoping, wish predicting. Because there's a couple of people there that really could easily win supporting actor. But if you've ever seen Robert Evans in interviews, certainly people in the industry, he was head of Paramount for a little while in the late 60s, early 70s, and then he became a producer of some really good movies. So many ticks, and he's just a wild character. And to have a British actor, Matthew Good, play him, Matthew Good's always playing good characters. And here, you know, Robert Evans was very, I don't know what the word would be, but he was very interesting. And then Miles Teller's assistant is played by Juno Temple, who really deserves 2 nominations this year. She deserves to get in for this. She's that kind of assistant that typically, if it was an Oscar category or even in the older days at the Emmys, that bossy assistant that's almost in charge of their boss, you know, handling everything and telling them what to do and how to do it, and coming up with solutions to problems. And anyway, she was really, really good. I liked several people in here. I like Dan Fogler as Francis Ford Coppola. And then some roles were just totally miscast. I won't even get into those. But anyway, those would be some of the ones. I hate to stick on just one thing, but I'm also worried, like Denton is, about if it was 8 years ago, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, Gaslit would easily get in, and Julia Roberts and Sean Penn would easily get in. But Stars doesn't have a good track record at the Emmys. Are they going to get in? And these 2 Oscar winners, I don't know. Denton, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I have 3 Oscar winners in my Best Actress lineup and 4 Oscar nominees in my Best Actor lineup. So, I mean, it's just stacked. I like Renee Zellweger, The Thing About Pam. You know, it's been sort of written off, but she's amazing. I mean, it's so good. She's completely unrecognizable, and I think she's really being underestimated. I think she's getting in, and I think she has a shot at winning. A lot of people don't even have her being nominated, but I refuse to believe that she won't be. I also have Sebastian Stan for Pam and Tommy. I would love to see him get in. I think it's just fascinating that we have people like Colin Firth and Samuel L. Jackson and Andrew Garfield, and we're like, can they get in? Will they be nominated for an Emmy? I mean, these are like movie legends, some of them, that now we might not see them get an Emmy nomination. It's incredible to see.
I hope the numbers fall in a way where we know there'll be 6 nominees in supporting for limited movie, but I hope there's 6 for lead. It's just ridiculous to have 5 with this kind of content, this kind of quality. Marcus?
Can we talk about Oscar Isaac, not from Scenes from a Marriage, which he's predicted to get in for, but Moon Knight? I cannot believe how good he was in this. He's playing 2 different characters, one with a really funny accent. The characters are so different. Like, even though they're not wearing different clothing or different makeup, you know which one it is just by looking at them. He's doing such a great job on that show. I already mentioned my impeachment girls, Sarah and Beanie. I think they deserve to get in. Julia Garner and Inventing Anna, she's down in 6th place, which is surprising. I feel like she should be higher for that. Again, a funny accent. Maybe there's something about funny accents that I want people to win Emmys. But yeah, she's really great.
And Daniel?
Yeah, this is kind of an incredible group of people who like may or may not get in, because I feel like performance-wise, I would stack them up against any nominee from this year's Oscars. And that Samuel L. Jackson from Last Days of Ptolemy Gray, one of the best performances I've seen him give.
And your interview with him was really good.
Thank you very much. And you know, he's so good in that. It's you know, he doesn't do series television very much, so he got to dig deep into this role for 6 hours, which was fantastic. And you know, I'm not sure how much buzz there is for the show, but we know voters are watching Apple TV Plus because they'll be watching Ted Lasso. They'll probably be watching Severance. So I hope there's enough attention there. And then there's Hamish Linklater from Midnight Mass, another tour de force performance of a character who contains mysteries that, you know, it aired a while ago, but I'm not going to give away the specifics. Let's just say he's not who, you know, he originally appears to be, and he really just nails that character in a way that could have come off as just strictly villainous. And there's something very, very sad about him as well. That's just a fantastic performance. And last one I'll mention, who I really think would stack up against any of this year's Best Actress Oscar nominees, even though I wasn't as enthusiastic about the project as a whole, Lily James and Pam and Tommy is a revelation. Like, and it's not just the hair, it's not just the makeup. She completely vanishes in that role in a way that, you know, good as he is, Sebastian Stan is fantastic, but good as he is, he doesn't disappear into Tommy Lee in the way that Lily James, you're not watching Lily James, you feel like you're watching Pamela Anderson tell her own story. And that's what's remarkable about that.
Let me mention one other name. I think he's getting in, so he's not really on the bubble, but Ben Foster in The Survivor. If he gets in, which they haven't been kind to TV movie performances lately. In some years, every single acting nominee in this genre is from a limited series and not a TV movie. If he gets in, he can beat Michael Keaton. That's a Holocaust movie directed by Barry Levinson about a boxer. Come on. And he is basically, he's in a lot of things, but he's basically a movie star too. He's not of the level of some of these Oscar nominees and Oscar contender winners that we've talked about. But I think he could win if he actually gets in. I'm not. We only have about 4 minutes left, so just to put everybody on the spot, is there another genre, another show, another something that you're hoping gets in this year that I'll go first while you think. I know Marcus is going to say Survivor in reality.
Yes, I was.
But we've hosted so many panel interviews lately, and one of the ones we did just that premiered last night. I'm hoping Ron Howard gets in for We Feed People on the documentary side. He's won some Emmys, so it's not like he doesn't have Emmys, but that's a really good documentary. And maybe my favorite documentary of the year was Lucy and Desi, which is the first documentary put together and directed by Amy Poehler. And Amy does have an Emmy for guest hosting SNL with Tina Fey, but I would love to see her on her own getting something like this. And Lucy and Desi, I Love Lucy and then Lucy later, were such Emmy favorites. Maybe that's enough pull to get Amy across the edge here. But I would love to see those get in. Who wants to go first? I kind of threw this one at you.
I'll just pick up on the Survivor thing. I actually wrote an article about how the Emmy voters need to pay attention to Survivor again. Look, this reality category is getting pretty stale. It's the same things every year.
They just nominate the same things in competition and host almost every year.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying Survivor should win over RuPaul's Drag Race. I'm just saying Survivor should be in the conversation. The Real World Homecoming, New Orleans was so good. I just interviewed Jonathan Murray, the showrunner, and I'm so glad I did because it made me watch the show, and I am now in love with the show. I'm going to watch every single.
And you were infatuated on that same panel with Paris Hilton too.
Yeah, she has a show on Peacock, Paris in Love. It follows her her story of the engagement and getting married. It's fun, very fun.
I was glad to see her on that panel with those other. The others were mostly reality producers like Jonathan Murray. Daniel, is there something you're pulling for that's out of the three genres we discussed?
Yeah, I'd love to see Q-Force nominated for animated program. It's a Netflix show. It's basically gay Archer. And I like it better than Archer. I've always had issues with Archer because the humor is very, can be a lot more caustic than I a lot of times like. In this case, this show has that same kind of edge, but it doesn't feel as mean-spirited to me. It feels much warmer and sweeter and still incredibly funny. Like this is the kind of show that can reference Vox Lux and the Princess Diaries in the same episode. Like it feels like it was written for like a very specific type of like media nerd like me. So I'd love to see Q-Force get it.
Didn't wrap it up for us.
Just on the reality set, first of all, I agree with Marcus about Survivor, but MTV's The Challenge. I mean, that show's been on forever. It's so good. It's Real World Road Rules alum coming and duking it out. But what I really love is the All Stars seasons that they have now, where everyone's older. Some of them are approaching 40 or 50, and it's more well produced, I would say, than the original. It's a little less of the behind the scenes drama, and that one is just fun to watch, and it's been on for years, ignored.
Well, thanks, Denton and Marcus and Daniel. Our Gold Derby Awards event launches in middle of June. I think you already know some of the things we're going to be voting for, but we'll have a couple of thousand people from around the world voting on those in many, many categories. So be sure that you do that. And also be sure to get in and make your updates and your predictions for our Emmy predictions contest. We've also got Grammys already up for next year. We've got the Tony Awards, which are next weekend. So make sure you go to our prediction center and get all your votes in and your predictions in. And thank you for watching today.